All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Equation of Excellence. I have a special episode for you all. We are out here at Shop Talk, and we have our fearless leader, CEO, my boss, co-founder, Rishabh Jain. Thank you
And
for joining the show.
yeah, of course. And most importantly, better at holding down my alcohol than
Oh
Rabbi.
my gosh. My boss can party harder than me. He can meme better than me. I didn't have that on my
You didn't?
2024 bingo card, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you.
Let's do it.
What was the first thing that got you involved in entrepreneurship? What was your first business, or what was the first thing that you
Oh,
did?
okay. So I don't know why, but ever since high school, I had this belief that business was the best way to propagate ideas in the world. So it's like
Interesting.
I don't have the typical story of like, oh, I was in high school and I was like
Yeah,
selling CDs or anything
yeah,
like that. In fact, I was the opposite. I was like studying all the time
yeah,
and like getting good grades.
yeah.
But for whatever reason, I knew that only way to distribute ideas widely in the world was to do it in a way in which was self-sustaining, which meant profitable
Interesting.
business. And so then ever since high school, like if you were to read my college application essay,
Yeah.
it like it like reads like a prediction of my life, which
Really?
is like, yeah, which is like,
You should post that.
I'm gonna
It's embarrassing.
actually, I might, no, I mean, if I can find
Really?
it,
Yeah,
if
that's
I can
interesting.
find it. Yeah. I was like, hey, I want to study business engineering because I want to build things and then I want to push them out into the world.
You have a pretty impeccable CV. Was Wharton the first choice you got in, or did you have a lot? I mean, because it's a proper school.
Yeah, it was my second choice. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who rejected you?
Stanford.
No. So does Evelyn look down her nose?
I haven't told
No way. Oh, I hope she listens to the podcast. No way.
her. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Stanford was my number one choice. And I got waitlisted and then did not get in. And Penn was number two at this like business engineering program. And then the same thing happened for my PhD,
Yeah.
where actually for my PhD, I did get into Stanford, but I was like, man, I really want to go to
Yeah.
Stanford. And then for other reasons, I was like, you know what? MIT is just better. So I'm just going to go to
I mean,
MIT.
it's the ivory tower. It's the school.
Yeah.
Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay, so graduate, you do, because what is that? 7 years, 8 years of academia? Because you have 4 for the undergrad and then another 4 for your PhD.
10. I did 4 for undergrad. Then I won one of those fellowships that takes you to London for a year. So I lived in London
Oh,
for
that's why you're okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So then I did physics there, and then I did 5 years at MIT. So 10 years total.
Okay, so when did you get into entrepreneurship?
Okay. So I started building my first businesses when I was a PhD student.
Okay.
So the first one was like a solar energy company.
Okay.
And that was clearly a bad idea. At the time, solar was really hot. So
Yeah.
2011, Solyndra, all
Yeah.
these things, they were super hot, and then they all busted in
Yeah.
2012. And so I had built a solar energy company. Actually, we funded the company entirely on prize money because it was such a hot idea.
Really?
Yeah, it was such a hot idea that I just like racked up prize money.
A ton of government subsidies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first business that failed. The second business was like basically like a lab data sharing platform.
Okay.
And then that one ended up not working out because we had a co-founder disagreement. And then
Okay.
I was like, okay, I got to go become a better manager. And then that's when I went into the ad tech world after my PhD.
Okay, with the live rent.
Yeah.
Amazing. Speaking of co-founders, Shreyas, wonderful human as well. How did you know he was going to be the guy for FERMAT? Like, did you guys do previous excursions together, or
Yeah.
because I think a co-founder is a really tricky one to choose, right?
Yeah. It's super tricky. And I am learning now as I like hang out with more founders at like Series B, C,
Yeah.
D stages that it's actually rare for co-founders to have a durable relationship.
Really?
Yeah. It's actually more common for something to happen. Yeah.
I can't think of the investor, but there was a really big, awesome investor that I really look up to. And one of the heuristics they use for success is how long have the co-founders been together?
Yeah.
Because kind of like a Lindy effect, right? Like they've been together for 10 years. They'll probably be together for another 10, but 6 months to a year, you don't know what's going to happen.
Totally.
So did you have like any heuristics or any proxies or any like red flags where it's like this, or like, give me some more like meat on the bone there. How do you choose?
Yeah. So ultimately there was two things that I thought about when thinking about who's the right co-founder. The first is they're a co-founder first and they're technical second.
Got it. Yep.
Meaning if I'm not running the boat and if that person is running the boat, the business will be
Okay.
fine.
Yep.
So that was the first thing. It's like, yes, want somebody who is technical, who has complementary skills, but
Yes.
they cannot be an engineer first and a co-founder second. So
Love
that's
that.
like the most important thing is
Yep.
co-founder first, engineer second. And then the second thing I thought about was like, is this person actually aligned with what kind of company we want to build? Like, I knew that I wanted to build a massive company.
Yep.
And otherwise it was not worth my time.
Yep.
And so the other person needed to be okay with that. Meaning
Yeah.
like if a $200 million exit opportunity showed up, they needed to be comfortable with me saying no,
Yes.
right? We're going to go all the way.
Yep.
Or it's going to go bust type
Yep.
of thing. Yeah.
So interesting. That's so interesting. So LiveRamp and then FERMAT, like what made you start the company? Like what, because it pivoted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So give the people a little bit of
So,
color of kind of the trajectory because it's been really cool to see, especially now, man. The product is getting really crazy.
yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. We've laid
hitting
the
a bit
good
of an inflection
foundation.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. So what the original inspiration for the company
Yeah.
was when you can no longer track people from app to website
Yeah.
or website to website, what if you could just build closed loop systems,
Yeah.
meaning like wherever you enter, the rest of the purchase journey was closed loop to that.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, the way that we do that is we build a backend that can create like many stores
Yeah.
and you do the one-to-one. At the time, influencers were super hot.
Yeah.
And so I thought that that front end was an influencer storefront.
Got it.
And so we built this influencer product and all of this
Yeah.
other stuff. And it turns out influencer was like a flash in the pan. I mean, not in like a negative way, but it's like it doesn't drive as much revenue as the other core channels. So it's like ultimately like paid media, email, SMS,
Yeah.
those are the core revenue drivers
Yes.
of e-commerce.
Yeah.
And influencer is just a small component of it, which is not to say it's not important, but it's a smaller component. I didn't appreciate that. And I thought like, oh my God, like influencers going to come and start taking share from the other ones.
Yeah.
And so that's what that realization was what then pivoted us to like, actually, we need to build a platform for brands that is channel agnostic.
Yes.
We cannot bet heavy on just influencer. We have to be like paid, retention, influencer, every channel. And the bet on that one channel and assuming it was going to take over, that was the mistake.
No, I love that. I would push back a little bit and saying it was almost you were building a feature, not a business, and you realized that, and you're like, okay, cool.
Totally.
This is like because the influencer product still is awesome. Like, I mean, we're the current state of the product, you can use it for influencers. But it's a feature, not a business. And so I think that for me, anyways, was the realization from the outside looking in, where it's like, okay, yes, let's give you these big foundational levers, and then influencers can slot into that.
Exactly. So the mistake I made, to phrase it a little better, is I thought influencer was the platform.
Got it.
And I realized that actually the platform is the stores
Yeah.
and influencers a channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what reframed the entire business. Yeah. Because we were building totally differently when you think that the influencer is the platform.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you shepherd a company through a pivot like that?
Oh my gosh. So
Because it's hard, right?
I did not think it was going to be hard,
Yeah.
but ended up being harder than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I was so super comfortable. Like I have no emotional attachment to things that have happened in the
Yeah.
past, especially on the product side. On
Yeah.
the people side, it's a little harder. But on the product side, it's like, yeah, it's not working.
Yeah.
Kill it. And then I got a ton of backlash from the engineers saying like, hey, Rishabh, we spent all this time building this. Like, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And I remember I was at one of our town halls at the
Yeah.
time, and I said, guys, I had a bunch of commentary from people asking like, how does this not happen again? And like people were nodding along.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me reframe this for you. The company you do not want to work at is the one that's unwilling to kill things that are not working.
Oh,
and in
100%.
fact, the question should be, Rishabh, how do we make sure this happens again? Because
100%.
that's the sign of a good company.
Yes.
It's like you're willing to kill things if it's not working. And the fact that we killed it, that's the good signal. It is not the bad signal.
That's so well put. And I think there's almost another layer to that where killing good ideas is the hard part. Like saying no to like
Totally.
bad shit. It's like, yeah, it's
Easy.
dummy, like kill it. But like the things that aren't great, that aren't the 100x, like when you hired me this, you would always push me like, Rob, I love that you're doing it, but focus on the 10x things, focus on the 100x. We can get to the optimization stage later in the growth curve. But right now, it's hockey stick, 10x, 10x. And so I think that's a big challenge in product is saying no to the
Totally.
really good ideas because they then push out the great ones.
This is why I love Alexa, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
She's
Great.
very good at saying no to things that are good ideas,
Yes.
but not actually like thing that's going to move the
Yeah.
needle.
The needle movers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Res-
And by the way, that's like starting to happen more and more to us now.
yeah.
I'm just getting, yeah, we're very fortunate right now. We're getting inbound with a lot of good ideas.
Yes.
And so we're having to now say no to good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, that's absolutely the path. What's like the biggest mistake you've made as a CEO, and what is the best decision you've made as a CEO?
Um, okay, I'll start with the best decision. I have to think a little bit harder about like the biggest. I mean, I made tons of mistakes, but I want to think about what is a good big
Like a
mistake
meaningful
too.
one?
Yeah. So I would say the best decisions I made are all like betting big on high quality people
Yeah.
and then just letting them do their thing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like early on in the business, like the first one was Strays, obviously
Yeah.
bringing him on
Of
as a
course.
co-founder, by far the best decision.
Yeah.
And then
Was there any convincing there, or was he all in from the get?
it was like actually a very complicated story. So I was co-founder dating with somebody else who I worked with at LiveRamp,
Yep.
who happens to also be a friend of Shreyas's.
Oh,
And that
wow.
person
I
said
didn't know that.
no. And then
Okay.
Shreyas was just like, "You said no? Are
Yeah.
you crazy?" And so then Shreyas emailed me saying like, "Hey, I heard Charles is no longer going to do it. Would you be open to me being the co-founder?"
Interesting.
And I was like, "Absolutely. I thought you didn't want to do it."
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we worked together for a month, and then that's how he ended up becoming co-founder. Yeah, yeah.
No, I love that.
But that was by far the best decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
And then
worst
worst
or
decision, I would say that the worst decision probably was, it probably had to do with capital efficiency early on.
yeah.
Starting a company in 2021, first of all, capital was free.
Yeah. It was Zerpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you also felt like it was free. And so some of our decisions early on in terms of like capital efficiency, I'm not, I don't think that they were smart decisions. Like
Yeah.
I was hiring people that were like good but not great.
Yep.
I was doing spends that were good but not great.
Yep.
And it's like you really should not be doing that in the early parts of the business. Yeah.
No, yeah, you have to be. I mean, there's nothing wrong with missing every now and then, but you're right in that sense. Like for me personally, because I think actually the role of the CEO is twofold. It's don't run out of money and vision.
Totally.
And I think the role of a CMO is capital deployment, efficient, effective capital deployment, and getting momentum or keeping momentum. Those are basically the two value vectors.
So well said. So well
No
said.
notes from
So
my
well
guy.
said.
Unbelievable.
Dude, this is why you live in my head. You live in my
This
head.
guy. What keeps you up at night as a CEO?
People.
People.
Only thing. So at some point, somebody told me that the seed money is for finding product market fit.
Yeah.
And then the Series A is for hiring the 1.0 executive team. And
I've never heard that before. I
I hadn't heard that before either.
That's
I heard it like a
strong.
month ago. Okay.
Yeah, that's very good.
And this has like reframed everything for me.
Yeah.
Because what I have started to realize is that it is way more true than I could have expected.
Yeah.
Because like the business is working right
Yeah.
now. Right? Like the basic mechanics of the business is
Yeah.
working. The product is really hitting.
Yeah.
And so the thing to pay a lot of attention to is like, are the right people in the right seats at all
Yes.
points in time of the business? And it's like, that part is so hard and it's way harder than I would have expected.
Yeah. No, that's I've never started my own, or I mean, I had my own little boutique shop, but it's nothing like entrepreneurship because it's cash flow. It's not this big bet that you have to then board, blah, blah, blah. But I just have to deal with the nonsense in the marketing department. You're the dad over every single department. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
every little thing bubbles up to you. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's a big matzo ball hanging out there every time. When do you start indexing heavily on systems and processes? Because I feel like there's a lot of
think-
people that, not to cut you off, but a lot of people that can get the cart before the horse, where I think there's a certain phase of a company early on where I'd rather have results than the perfect system.
Totally.
And I think a lot of people
Totally.
index on like OKRs, blah, blah, blah. And like in the later stages at Triple Whale, there was just this fetishization of process and people weren't performing, but they could tell you how much they suck. And that was just like my nightmare fuel, where it's like, I understand the need for it and processes and systems and things like that. Like, again, I'm a big Notion maxi, that nature, but how do you think of that in terms of the order of operations and like in terms of timeline and implementation?
Okay. So I have two ways of thinking about this. The first one is I think systems are relevant when they can actually help you do your job better. Like,
Like a multiplier or something?
yeah, it should be so like it's always people first and systems second, not
I like that.
systems first and people
I like
second.
that.
And so it's like you want to trust the people and the organization, and then if they need the systems, then they will figure out the systems, right? It's like, but you cannot do systems first and then people and say like, hey, here's the system, plug into it. Like
Exactly.
that never works,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work at this scale. It doesn't work at 1,000 people either.
Yeah.
Because when I was at LiveRamp, I was like 1,200 people.
Yeah.
Trust me, like trying to push systems down does not work.
It doesn't work.
Um, So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is like systems should be thought about as like what are the sets of activities that I want to put on autopilot,
Mhm.
and everything else should not be a system.
Yeah.
So it's like it should allow you to worry about the big problems.
Yeah.
And if it's doing the inverse, which is like it's getting in the way of you solving
Yeah.
problems, then it's again you should just not. So that's how I think about system.
No, that's really well said. I have almost like a Hippocratic oath type of thing for systems where it should at worst never make you less efficient. Like if the system is
Exactly.
making you worse, then nuke the system and just do it by hand. But it's hard sometimes, especially for engineers or even myself, where if you do this thing one off, but then you want to make this like fancy little system for it. And like there's just all the programmer jokes of like they're going to spend 4 hours to write a script when they could have just done it in like manually, but
Totally,
inefficiently in
totally.
30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's an interesting balance.
Yeah, I think some people like the comfort of systems also. And so that's also something to be careful of
See,
because
that's
it
why I
can
don't like systems people, because you can hide.
yeah,
And I don't like that.
yeah. And you have to be careful in the early days of a company because you're what is that thing? It's like you're putting in work, but you're not actually going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah,
right.
so
Especially too, there's a, just because it's meaningful to you, it took you a long time and it was really hard, doesn't make it valuable. Like I
totally.
can go dig a hole in the backyard and sweating and blah, blah, blah. And like, but there's no business impact to it. And I think that's where I get really sketched out sometimes when people are over indexed on systems. Um, you're quite the stock picker. Give me some macro predictions for 2024. What do you think? We got a presidential election coming up. We got TikTok ban on the
Okay.
horizon.
I'm not a
What-
macro guy. I'm a micro guy.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not macro. No. Yeah, I
So
don't
that's
do
why you
any
can pick the stock
that's
so
why I
well,
do stock
because
picking. Yeah,
micro.
exactly. I'm a micro guy, not a macro
Interesting.
guy.
Okay. Okay. Well, that blew me up
Yeah.
then.
But let me tell you my micro.
Okay.
Okay. So, first of all, I think when you think about investing, yes, it's a good idea to invest in the market, and the market has
Yeah.
grown in the US, and the US is a great economy, so you should
Yeah.
just do that. But when it comes to stock picking, it is a micro problem. And so
Yes.
it's like, Zuck is amazing. And I think to not recognize that is like unbelievable to me. And so, and so it's like, bet on the micro. It's
Yeah.
like the micro is Zuck is amazing.
Yeah.
He's going to figure it out. He has like such a track record of both building and buying, which is very hard to do. And so it's like, okay, I have a lot of money in Facebook and that is
Yeah.
done very well.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think like that's how I think about micros. Like, what are the specific things that are true about individual companies
Yeah.
that are stand out? So
Yeah.
like Shopify, the thing that people don't appreciate about Shopify is that the app ecosystem is a like self-fulfilling prophecy
Yes.
that it will always make the ecosystem builder
Yes.
bigger. I was like talking
And better.
and better. Yeah, exactly. I was talking to a merchant on BigCommerce the other day, and he was like so upset that he was on BigCommerce.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I have nothing against it, but this person was just like frustrated because he felt like he was constrained. And so
Yeah.
it's like those types of feelings are what's going to drive business for Shopify.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So,
I'm with you there. And I think they have that perfect duo in Harley and Toby, where you just have this very technical person that understands really where the market goes. And then you just have this uber charismatic guy that just says everything right. Doesn't want to hang out with Hartley. And I think that is really, really amazing, especially as you like the way they handle all the pushback of kind of Sherlocking apps and stuff. I thought it was just beautiful where Toby's like, hey, we're just going to build these foundational ones. And if you still want the bells and whistles, get recharge, get whatever, like, but we're going to give you this baseline subscription to help these people kind of long tail. And then if you want to get fancy, then you just switch to something and pay other people.
You know what's interesting? Toby is by far the biggest advocate in the company of ensuring that the partner ecosystem is always happy.
100%.
By far.
100%.
Yeah. And it's like other people who are advocating for internal tools. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Let's stay on the forecasting a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your predictions for 2024 for the D2C e-commerce space? Any spicy ones, any hot takes?
I think two big ones. The first one is I think that up until last year, there was such a focus on like, we've got to go retail. We've got to like reduce spend on paid acquisition. And I think this year it's going to flip.
Really?
Yeah. I think people are going to be like, oh my God, now I remember why I was doing D2C. Retail is such a pain.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my first hot take.
That's a pretty hot one. I like it. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my second hot take is that I think that by the end of the year, there will be venture dollars going into consumer again.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that D2C brands will be like, I mean, I don't think they're going to raise massive money like, the Caspers of the world, but I think there will be like good investments that are happening in D2C e-commerce again.
Interesting. I like those takes. Those are pretty strong.
Yeah.
I don't hate them. It'll be interesting to see because there's the joke D2C is a channel, not a business.
Totally.
So it'll be interesting. I think that is actually, though, only relevant to certain run rates. Where I think when you start to get proper big, where it's like 100, 200 million, like you have to get into retail, or wholesale, things of that nature. Before we wrap up, I would be remiss not to ask you, what's your favorite watch? What's the best watch ever made?
Ooh. Okay.
For people that didn't know, exquisite tastes in watch and timepieces.
Yeah. Okay. I like, Patek has a blue-faced perpetual calendar, which I think is one of the most beautiful watches that I've ever seen. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's a 6-figure watch.
Yeah.
So,
but it's investment.
It's
holding.
Someday.
Someday. It's holding it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one that I really like.
Yeah.
And then I like, on the other side, that's classy. This is what the Patek is classy. And then on the like fun side, I like MBNF is.
Okay.
MBF, yeah.
So no AP. You're not AP guy.
Yeah.
AP
is AP is too popular. AP is too popular. I can't get behind things that are too popular. So like Rolex, I would never buy a Rolex.
Yeah. I'm actually in the exact same boat. I have the same preference. Okay. Last question. What is your equation for excellence? What do you think excellence is a function of?
I think excellence is a function of the size of the bet that you are taking and the number of swings that you take.
I love that.
And so the bigger the size of the bet and the bigger the number of swings, and those are the only two things that matter.
Be at the table and then know when to go heavy and when to go all in.
That's why you and I only talk about helping turn the table.
Rishabh, thank you so much for joining me. I know you have a meeting to go to. Go check us out, FERMATCommerce.com. Go book a demo. Rishabh's actually very active on LinkedIn. Check him out there. And incredible Twitters. Your meme niche is it's something to marvel at. It's incredible. Also, if you go to FERMATCommerce.com, we have a great newsletter, Geometry of Growth, goes out every Monday. Go check it out there. And then we have a sister show called D2C Hunter, where I get to light up the ramp and do a whole bunch of analysis on the consumer journey from pre-purchase to unboxing. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.